All right, we'll call this Committee of the Whole Finance meeting to order. Can I have a motion to adopt the minutes from the meeting of October 23rd? Moved by Councillor Leafwood, second by Councillor Lang. Any discussion? All those in favor? Motion's carried. And so we'll get straight into our business. We've got a delegation. Scott Wallace from True Consulting is going to speak to us about possible expansion of the sewer system. And there's a map to guide us and might touch on the next two phases of the plan if we want. So, Scott, you can
Sure.
take the floor.
Yeah, thanks for having me up. So, in terms of project phasing, and I guess the reason I've asked him up here is to talk about potential project phasing and how the sewer system could be expanded with consideration given the fact that there's this new Build Canada fund and potential to apply for grant funding, grant assistance. I don't know if you're all aware of how that program is set up. The first intake is next February, mid-February. And so the program has a bunch of different targets. One of them has a wastewater component, and expansion of the sewering system would fit within that scope that's in that part of the grant application of the grant fund. And it's really a matter of deciding what is in Kaslo's interests and how much the village is prepared to commit to the project in advance of making the application. Because the New Build Canada Fund, that small communities fund, is a one-third between the feds and the province and the village. So the village would have to come up with one-third of the dollars for whatever project is proposed. We also have the ability you only have the ability to make one application. So you need to prioritize what you want and make an application for that project. In terms of background information and supporting information, all branch programs, they all have different sets of information that they're looking for, different application forms to fill out. But the one thing in common from all the ones that I've seen is the more information that you've got, that you've done as background searching and options review, the better position you are to make that application, because it reduces risk to the funder of a project going sideways and not being complete because it's over budget or the project just can't be done. So for potential sewering expansion, the unknowns are really length of sewer, grades to determine whether you can flow by gravity or whether a lift station is needed to pump the sewage back up, and capacity of the treatment plant. Technically, those are the things, the unknowns right now that would need to be identified, and costs allocated to those, cost estimates allocated to those as part of the grant program. So that information, we pull that together over the next 2 months to be in a good position to make that application. So as it stands right now, it would be a bit of a long shot to make the application on the information that we've got, but you're in a good position in terms of having some background information in the first stage of the waste management planning process is complete. So you've done some options review to look at some of the big picture options of how sewering could occur in Kaslo over the next 20, 40, 60 years. So that's the overall theme, I guess. You've got some decent background information, but you need to pull that information together in a way that makes sense so that you can make a decent application to this project, to this fund. And for the phasing, it's a matter of determining where the next best step is for the village of Kaslo. And there would be a few things you would consider. One would be how much the village is considered or is willing to commit for your 1/3. And the other would be where the greatest need would be from the liquid waste management planning process in that first stage, the lower Kaslo area was identified as the greatest need throughout in terms of the village as a whole. The lots are smaller, there's lots are smaller, it's on a alluvial fan from the river, groundwater table would be higher, there's more potential for damage to the environment as a result of the septic fields that are in Lower Kaslo. So expansion through Lower Kaslo for sure is the next best step. But within that, there's still a lot of sewer main to run down there. So the colored lines that I throw on that map are just rough lines that like I said, I did a couple of years ago when I was just trying to get a sense of total length of sewer main it would take to sewer down the Lower Kaslo area. But don't get hung up on where those lines are actually running. Like Glenn said, one of them for sure would run up the lane as opposed to the street, the yellow line. So this is not a plan in terms of here's what will happen. It's how many meters of sewer need to happen to sewer Lower Kaslo. When I sent an email to you yesterday, Neil, so that all those colored lines on there represented just under 3 kilometers of sewer main. In the liquid waste management plan, we put really rough dollars in there, but that was about $3.8 million of sewering plus $2 million of treatment plant upgrades to accommodate that as well as future expansion beyond that. And it's a matter of deciding how much of that $3.8 million of sewer mains and $2 million of treatment upgrades you would want to do in the next phase of sewer. The other challenge, of course, with that is the fact that we've got a specified service area right now that's been contributing dollars to the repayment of the debt for the system that's there. And so, and there's unused capacity in the plant, but some of that capacity, or maybe all of that capacity, could be used by the existing service area as it develops. So expansion of the system is possible right now because there's unused capacity, but you would need to find a fair way of compensating for the capacity that you're taking up in the treatment plant. Does that make sense? Yeah. If you're not going to build the treatment plant up against it now. Questions on that so far?
So if we were going to apply for that kind of fund, what would be the timeline for borrowing? Because don't we have to go through the region?
Yes, it would be, if we were going to borrow, we would only have a couple of months to put together the bylaws and work with the regional district for next year. But I think in all likelihood, if this went forward, it would be a 2016 project. We would have to borrow, regardless of the scenario, a significant sum, as we don't have much in reserve for sewer. It would be, there'd probably be a referendum in the community.
In terms of the grant application process, pretty sure you just need to show that you are committed to the project. Yes. Obviously, if you already had a borrowing bylaw in place that was approved, you would be in a better position for from the funder's perspective, right? The other funders being the province and the federal government. They saw that you had commitment and were able to borrow and had already gone through that referendum process, then you'd be in a better spot. But you don't have to have that done in order to make the application.
Any questions? Mr. Lang?
Yeah, I'm just reading this, 2,800 meters of sewer main to do all of Lower, and plus 3,500 of 350 force main.
Yeah.
At total cost of 3.8.
Yeah.
So we're over $1,000 a meter.
Yeah.
And
that was rough dollars, just making some assumptions for
right.
how much pavement needs to be replaced and just looking at it for it, right?
so that lines up with industry standard from the best of your knowledge?
Yeah, for a Class D, that's what I would call those ones in
Right.
in the liquid waste management plan. There's no survey work's been done yet, none of the design work's done, so it's really just looking at other projects of similar magnitude and trying to make some decent assumptions.
So,
And so you'd want to have a better understanding of those costs to make the grant application. So we'd want to go out, like I said to Glenn earlier, drive the street, have a look at where there is and isn't asphalt, think about which homes probably have basements, how deep the sewer would probably have to be, confirm some elevations at intersections, and make sure you've got grade, determine whether you need a lift station or not. Things that are equivalent to, more than $100,000 plus or minus of project costs. Those are the things that need to be determined.
okay, so I still have a vague recollection of what it took to get the sewer line in down this alley right here, and there was they were down quite deep by the time they crossed 4th Street, and like right adjacent to the building here, they were down about 16 feet. So,
Right.
and I mean, working in the alleys is great in that you don't have the pavement issue, but the bad news is there's no width, so it becomes very awkward doing your digging when you have no ability to throw your spoil piles off to the side. That you got to end haul everything, and so that certainly adds to the cost.
Definitely.
For myself, and this is just my opinion, and I'm not sure where the new council's headed with this, I think we need to kind of pull in our horns a little bit and just focus on maybe doing a portion of this in the immediate future, and not get too grandiose with our plans, because 5.8 million is a lot of money.
Sure is.
No matter how you slice the pie, it's still a lot of money.
Yep.
Even with 2/3 funding, and from my perspective, even if we got one alley done, it would be a step in the right direction, and probably would not necessitate any major upgrades to the sewer plant if we were only to take on an additional, what are we talking, 30 properties or something of that nature.
Right. And the plant right now on the peak days sees around 180 cubic meters per day. It was designed for 340. So there's another 100.
Just over 50%.
Unused. So that's probably at least 300 homes we can handle.
So 30 is not going to tip the balance one way or the other. And the only other question I got, and I don't know if you can answer it right now, is the cost of putting the grant app together.
But yeah, and I haven't taken a good look at that. I think to pull that information together, to get a sense of the depth of the sewers, so we can put together a better cost estimate. Go out and do some GPS survey on the corners of streets and see where up and down is. It's probably a week of my time to do that, so it's probably $5,000, something like that, to gather that information, and then it just depends on the length of time to actually assemble the application itself and how involved I would be as compared to village staff, because I've done it both ways before. I fill this out and hand it over to Neil and say, what do you think? What am I missing? And I've done them the other way as well, where Neil fills it out and says, what do you think? What am I missing? But probably in the range of $5,000 to $10,000 in my time, I would think, to assist with that process. Yeah.
So I haven't studied the waste management reports though. I got a couple of generic questions. One is there a lifespan or a day when the current plant comes into operational and not operational? What's the forecast on that?
Well, it was built 15 years ago.
There it goes.
And there will always be improvements that will need to happen over the course of its life. I don't know what we've done to it to date. I assume the pumps have probably been upgraded. The structure should last the better part of 100 years. But all the mechanical things in it will be replaced over that 100 years,
Okay,
at least once or
I thought I
twice.
heard something somewhere about the technology was kind of going away.
Oh, the plastics there, no, it's
Dale?
I can't say we've done any RDCs, True's done any RDCs in the last 5 years. In the last 10 we had though. So it's not a totally dated technology. There's other ways of treating more sewage on the same footprint now that didn't exist 20 years ago. But in terms of the lifespan of that plant, you could keep doing mechanical upgrades on it indefinitely and keep running, right? The only thing that would change would be whether the regulations change, and you have to improve the plant to meet the regulations.
This is probably the time for me to interject and make the observation that even if the existing service area were retained in its current size, there would still be a requirement for the village to address how it's going to fund capital asset replacement within the existing sewer plant going forward, as we are in 15 years into the life of that asset and not enough funding has been put towards amortization of the existing asset.
Any questions, Councillor? Anyway?
Good.
No? This one would sort of be for you. If we wanted to go forward with part of this, but also the planning at the same time, and what would the plan in the second and third phases identify? Some of these very things that are here?
Yes.
So,
The goal of phases 2 and 3 of our liquid waste management plan is to refine the options identified in 1 and settle on a final plan.
Plan with the cost.
Yes, based on cost and reality. Discussions I've had with the province indicate there's, at least right now, there's a degree of flexibility there, recognising the limited assessment base in Kaslo in terms of what the final product might be. It would certainly be useful to consultants and to staff to know what the end result, what the aspirational end result of the sewer actually is going to be.
That's right. Would gas tax money cover the cost of phase 2, 3 plan?
You could use gas tax money on the specific engineering, and you could use it on funding the plans for phase 2 and 3. Yes, we use gas tax to fund phase 1.
I just wanted to be clear that there is.
But where we have a challenge, as you know, is that we can't really leverage gas tax funding for a Build Canada project because federal dollars are already in the mix there. You might be able to use a little bit, but not very much. Therefore, the majority of the third, if not the whole third, has to be sourced from borrowing.
Yeah, I'm just wondering at this point in time, given the dollars and cents, if it wouldn't make sense to just completely drop Upper Castle and all the areas south of the river out of the plan entirely and just say that's just not happening in the foreseeable future, and then just focus all our attention on Lower Castle in terms of phase 2 and phase 3.
Well, don't get me wrong. I've had these discussions with the Prof, and I think Scott knows this is we're not obliged to wait for the end of the liquid waste management plan and know what the settled final plan is to do incremental expansion of our collection system. If there's a piece of the system that council wishes to fund, that the consultant believes, and and staff believe is going to happen regardless of what the final overall plan is going to be, you can proceed. You don't require the province's permission to do it, as long as you're within certification or permits that the plan currently holds. You can do these things. The only thing council needs to do is rescind its current moratorium on further expansion, and do that, and do an incremental expansion of some kind on a key piece of the system. But no, if you wish to provide direction ahead of phase 2 that Upper Caslo's off the plan, you can do that as well. It'll be, yeah.
Can I add a couple comments to that?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, and so in the first stage of liquid waste management plan, it's not as though there was really completely polar opposite options being reviewed. It was pretty obvious that downhill's going this way, and so lower Kaslo eventually would be sewered heading that way. Where the lift stations, how many lift stations, that still needs to be determined. So in terms of the grant application, you wouldn't be getting ahead of yourselves by trying to move forward with an incremental expansion. Right? You're not shooting yourself in the foot because you're doing something that would be not in accordance with the next stages of the liquid waste management plan. And then the other part of that, for the dropping Upper Kaslo and South Kaslo, I think you'd want to think a little bit about that. The liquid waste management planning process is intended to be a really long-range look at things. Right? Even if you don't foresee that happening in 20 years, you need to think longer than that. You need to identify a site where this plant can be expanded over the next 100 years that could service more of the village. So I think you'd be a little bit short-sighted to just drop them out of the, and it won't be the sewering expansion, because I think through the first stage we already kind of identified that the focus would be on Lower Kaslo, but it's how big will the treatment plant need to be and how much land you need to accommodate that. Those are the things that we'll want to look at in the next stages.
And my whole comment was predicated on, because of the cost, we're trying to keep the cost down for stage 2 and stage 3, but not a lot of time and energy be devoted to something that's not likely going to take place anytime soon.
Yeah.
That's the only thing. I mean, it could be made reference to, but I personally would hate to see you go out and start looking at potential sites for a sewage treatment plant in Upper Kaslo or south of the river and doing cost estimates to construct one when it's just so far down the road that it's hard to even. But it, like you say, make reference to it. Say ultimately, in a perfect world, here's what we want to accomplish long term. I don't have a problem with it. Anyway.
I do have a couple of questions. The first one would be, with the existing plant, how much of that mapped area that was identified could be served by the existing plant without it needing to be
upgraded,
altered?
Right. I don't know off the top of my head. I haven't counted houses.
Oh, okay.
But it would be around 160 cubic meters a day, so around 300 houses, something like that. That could be that whole area easily.
Right.
But it also depends on the type of what's on the map right now, right? Some of those areas could be redeveloped, and the intent of the planning process is to give the ability for some higher densities in Lower Kaslo, right?
And that's also assuming that no one else in the existing area develops. So I'm just trying to get at a spot where, we're trading off with people who've already been paying. Where's the point that we reach that we've taken away what they've been paying for all these years and giving it to someone new? So that's where I was getting with that question is, without major upgrades or that we building in the upgrades that would be necessary to still accommodate the rest of the properties in the current specified area.
Right. Yeah, and we made some assumptions for the remainder of the current specified area in the liquid waste management plan. And that added up to about 100 cubic meters. But that could change, right, just depending on what the nature of the future development and redevelopment is. So that if that happened exactly as we were assuming then there'd be about 60 cubic meters left, which is about 120 homes, which is still a good chunk of Lower Castle, maybe all of it.
And that flow, that's just during the peak times, or like, is there any way, like, I'd heard that there's holding tanks that could be utilized, would that increase the amount of flow that could go through the plant, which would alleviate the problem that I was just
Yeah, you can look at that, because the peak flows do happen on long weekends.
Right.
Maybe along August long.
Yeah, like on a regular basis, we're only running, I believe it's under 100 cubic meters.
Oh, okay.
And Sanitherm looked at the plant and stuff and felt that if the technology, if the system was changed away from the RBC to membrane, we could easily double the capacity within the current footprint of that tank. The other thing is, like, we're already having a problem with the discs on that RBC wheel. I don't know how long we'll be able to buy them. Maybe we should be buying some and having them stored, because if we are not able to buy those things, then we have a real problem. Because it's older technology. I don't know if they're still even making them today, those discs for that wheel. So when we could run out of, the plant could be kind of obsolete or needing a major long before it even hits 50% capacity.
Right, at the current rate of growth and contribution to it, yeah.
And in that sense, we need a capitalization strategy for the service.
What kind of money are we talking here to get a spare set of discs?
I don't know.
We got a spare shaft, so.
We do.
Probably
That
never
we'll
use.
never use.
Yeah.
Although if we had a catastrophic failure of that one, we'd probably like to get all new ones to put on that wheel and then you drop the whole wheel.
Right.
Like, I don't think you'd try to strip all of those ones off of that one.
Put them on the shaft.
I don't think so, especially because a bunch of them are messed up right now.
Right. Well, it'd be a good idea to get a price on them and have it, because if those, if those discs last 20 years and we buy another set and have them ready to go, there's another 20 years, right, theoretically.
Because that is the key component within the,
Everything else could be
there's a
taken.
few, but that's one of the key components within that plant.
They're unique, where the rest of the components on there can be bought or made or whatever quite easily.
Yeah. Numerous people build the UV, numerous people build the screen filters.
Any other questions for Scott?
Just one. So, given the fact that there is some storage capacity, would it be safe to say that that plant could run at 100% capacity on, or what would be the recommended industry?
It was designed for 340, so you should be able to expect that it could do 340 cubic meters a day.
Right.
It's been seeing half of that, and it's been running without issues,
Right.
generally speaking. Yeah. And so yeah, I think you should expect it. You'll be able to get 340 cubic meters a day out of it. And in terms of you're asking for about taking those peak loads off, you could look at that for those weekends. It's a large amount of tankage to pull the sewage in over the weekend and then slowly release it over the days after.
We do
that.
have the storage.
And there is some
Emergency
storage there
tank.
that's used that's intended to be emergency storage.
You wouldn't want to max it out.
Yeah.
Add to the one question. When they designed that for 340,
Yeah.
do they not have a safety factor in
They would
there?
have.
I mean, most engineers I've ever
Yeah,
met
for sure.
will give you a design number
Yeah,
to be absolutely safe,
right.
but they always build in
Yeah, for sure there'd be some
situation
safety factor. Yeah, there would be.
10% or
Yeah, no, it could be as high as 25, but you're not going to make decisions on, hey, we need 25% extra capacity in there so we can tie in an extra 100 homes. you'll know
I was thinking
whether
of
you're gonna have
long
issues
weekends.
as you ramp up the flows.
Yes.
When you get up to 280 cubic meters a day, when you get up to 300, you'll know whether you're gonna have issues or not.
Thanks.
Didn't we already increase it? Like, didn't we increase it by some percentage of 2 years ago?
You increase the allowable discharge, yeah, from 340 to 370, but that doesn't mean the plant is capable of 370.
Right.
One good thing about if we do this incrementally is we'll see what's happening. And we'll know after, like, one street goes on, handles it fine, 2 streets, you know, like,
Yeah.
because, yeah, right now it's a guess.
Yeah, so then I have capacity right now.
Any other questions?
Just where do we go from here?
Yeah, what are the next steps?
What are the next steps? When do we meet
Well-
again? When do we?
I think we'll talk about that afterwards.
I'll just say that we do, as staff, we do require some direction points in terms of what we're doing for Build Canada, because I'm currently unable to begin a dialogue with Build Canada or with a consultant until I know whether we're doing a water project or a sewer project. That discussion needs to happen quite soon.
Ideally, before there's a foot of snow on the ground and it's impossible to see everything that we'd like to see to prepare decent cost estimates.
I guess for my part, given that we do have a resolution on the books and that was made for a reason, I think we want to open a dialogue with the specified sewer member owners at this point and see if there's a way forward. We're doing the planning concurrently with a grant app, if that's what we decide, if that's suitable, that we do have that resolution on the books, which I think we need to honor. It was made a while ago, and it would be nice if everybody knew the reasoning behind that resolution and if there are things that we could do to make it work for everybody, so that because we do have it in our power to just do that if we want, but I personally would favor that route. Any other questions for Scott? I think we'll wrap this up. All right, thanks very much.
Thanks.
Next item is roof insurance for elected officials. Blue Cross offers this as an option every election. They send out their brochures.
There's one in the seniors hall.
Oh, yes, okay. Do we want to, okay, is everybody fine with dealing with the seniors hall next and then
Yes.
planning to leave? Okay. Had you seen that, the correspondence before from the seniors?
I did, it was just but I wasn't getting told to do anything about it.
No, I think that's what
No,
we're.
it's referred to you.
But I have seen it, yes.
So I guess part of it would be what kind of costing those items would be, if they're big dollars or if they're easily achievable.
Okay, I haven't actually priced it out. I'm going to actually have to meet with Tom because I don't fully understand his notes
Oh,
on where his thoughts are. Just to make sure that I get it right, what he's talking about.
Should we make basically a direction that we have some figures for the next, everything else?
so that, Councillor Leawood,
Second.
second by Councillor Holland. discussion? All those in favor? Motion's carried.
Yeah. I'm gonna see you. That's okay. I'll see you on the street when I can complain to you.
Talk to Neil.
Here's the proper channels.
Yeah.
All right, so, back to insurance. Give a quick synopsis of that.
Well, you have your usual indemnity, which is budgeted for every year. This option is available to council, basically a benefit package similar to an employee package. It's certainly not cheap, but it is. Some local governments do extend their benefits package to include their councils. So it's there if you wish to look into it, and if you wish us to get a quote for all five. You can see that the premiums are there. Blue Cross coverage is certainly it's a major recruiting tool for the local government for its employees. I can't criticise the quality of what you get, but it is expensive.
So for basic health and dental, it's about $200 a month. And there's no.
Well, is this an all or nothing deal? I mean, everybody's got to go in or?
Three. Yeah,
you need a
three.
minimum of three.
There's nothing here that appeals to me.
So this would be a decision by the council.
Yes,
Yeah.
it would be.
Yeah.
So we're not going to really do anything with this tonight. So can we refer it to the first committee of the whole? So what was the deadline already in there? Was January 31st?
You have to let them know.
Or was it deadline?
Must be the full
Oh,
term.
March 31st.
March
yes.
Yeah, and then we have to run for the full term of office.
Okay.
All 4 years. So I guess the January committee of the whole budget would be good enough? Enough time for everybody to get a heads up on this?
Yes, given, that we have 1 member who will be gone for the next, if we have the Cal Finance in December.
We haven't determined that.
You need a motion to refer this?
I can just have it as a direction.
Okay.
So we can put it on there.
And could we just, for now, forward it to the two new members of council, so they'll have a chance to take a look at it? All right. The next one will be in the same situation, but there's facilitated new council orientation. And I do have a question. Is Kimberley the only place that it's available?
In the local area, yes. That's the most local one that you're getting. The other question, which again can wait for the new council, although a number of our other municipalities are trying to get things set up now, is sometimes an in-house orientation of facilitator. A number of the Slocan Valley municipalities are looking at it actively, but it is very expensive to do it, of course. But this is the time of year where I would either set something up or we would discuss what we wanted, particularly for the benefit of the two new members of council.
Again, we'll have to just move that forward. because we want to make a decision soon.
Yes, you'll be pushed for a decision on that, and for the Kimberley opportunity quite soon.
So,
They haven't mentioned the deadline yet?
No.
I can't seem to get this. Yeah.
Have to go into next year's budget.
Yes, there's a prior resolution that this would be something that would come under 2015.
Yeah.
Well, I went through that agenda, comparing it to other years, and it's structured for new elected individuals as well as elected individuals to update them on the changes that have occurred. I certainly hope that council will attend that, because there have been significant changes at the provincial level and in the community charter and a number of other regulatory and legislative areas. But it's also a chance to meet all the other individuals, so you can phone them up and say, well, how are you handling this, how are you handling that? So and I believe there was a surplus in the budget, was there now, in the travel budget now from last year? I haven't talked to Stephanie, but she said that so anyway, all I'm saying is that this is a pretty important function in terms of giving council the ability to be more effective and efficient in their deliberations.
Staff are currently putting together a fairly basic orientation packages for the new members of council. But again, at this time of year, we would set new members of council up for orientation of some description, whether it's in-house or something like this. Depending on how the new members used to handle it, there probably should be some kind of strategic meeting early in the year so that we can get some direction on the financial plan. So I can bring in some recommendations for the next meeting or for the next regular meeting, but we probably should get some feedback from the new council members quite soon.
Yeah, I don't know if this is in the office here or not, but I have the binder from the last one that I went to. Should I bring that back, or you guys have that here?
We probably have a copy of it in the office, but I'll ask it.
Okay, yeah, I can bring it back. It's laid out really well.
I'll just ask council do we have any problem with having the newly elected members give any feedback that you might have, since we're talking about you guys, and what your feelings would be. So this would be a 3-day session
Well, for me personally, I'm interested in as much education as possible, but I know those things, they throw the hotel in. I mean, I've got free accommodation in Kimberley. I have lots of friends there, so I've couch surfed and go to save money, right?
Yeah.
I don't know about you guys. Probably not.
That was good
feedback.
Yeah.
It's fine with me too.
Pardon me?
Fine with me too.
But I can see the point. If it's going to cost a fortune, I'm sure has something here that's.
Yeah, if it will cost a lot, why not do something
Councilor Wong?
Yeah, one of the
else?
advantages,
Sorry.
Yeah.
The regulations really change. That must, maybe we can borrow your copy.
the format of the mayor's correct, the format of the meeting, what it does is it broadens your options around different experiences, because you're going to hear a wide array of either problems or solutions from so many different people that in a closed group here, you'd have a very limited resource, basically. And in this closed group, we could end up repeating the same mistakes we've been making for the last 3 years and not knowing. So in the broader scope, when you go to that meeting, you're going to have all kinds of experiences from all kinds of different communities, and it's
I think
way
it's
more
great.
comprehensive, than what, unless, I don't know what this Sultana thing, that would be something similar. But one of the advantages of going ahead and moving forward on this is rooms get booked up.
Yeah, that's.
So, I mean, if it looks like it would probably be a good idea for staff maybe to go ahead and book rooms, because it looks like it's leaning that way at least, and we can always cancel later if we have to, so I would suggest that we go ahead and book accommodations.
Kelly, you said you had somewhere that you would stay and.
I can, yeah.
Yeah, because any cost savings that we could realize is appreciated, because then, you know, it could go to another session that you might want to attend later that maybe you can't find somewhere to stay with a friend, so.
So I should direct my staff to book up to 4 rooms then.
I'm not averse to sharing if you're not. Okay. All right, and so just one further question. Do you want this emailed to you so you can look at it? Okay.
Yes, thank you.
All right. So, do you want a resolution for staff to do that?
No, we'll just get that set up and we'll get some confirmation and subsequently as to who's going.
All right, so the last item is Committee of the Whole Finance scheduling for 2015. So what we had been doing is, well, once a month in the summer, but twice a month when things really are cooking, which will be starting right away. And it was Tuesdays, but on our second meeting, I can't remember what we did last year.
Because of various things, we were trying to stay consistent with Tuesday, but we ended up having to have a few on a Thursday here and there.
Right. Because we went regular Committee of the Whole on the first Tuesday.
The consensus seemed to be that if everybody knew they were meeting on a Tuesday, it kind of helped.
Well, I guess if there's finance things that are more important, or that there's, because some of our Committee of the Whole meetings were quite brief, so it could be either. If we just say that every Tuesday, so that would be every Tuesday that we would meet from January until April, probably. Yeah.
Even when there's 5 Tuesdays or just 4 Tuesdays?
Well, four meetings, up to,
Okay.
yeah.
So we get one cheap movie night out of the deal.
So, and meeting times for staff, for the Committee of the Whole, actually 4:30 works better, especially if we need to have public works staff in attendance. So does 4:30 work? All right. Works for both of you as well?
Oh,
Okay. All right.
Okay.
I don't know. I'm not comfortable walking away from this meeting without giving some direction to staff on the sewer business, because I think we've got a real gun to our head here. And I'm not discounting what we said about public engagement. I think that's an important part of the process, but we need to move quick. Because we're going to get into Christmas, and then right away we're into the new year, and then bang, Scott made reference to the fact that it's hard for him to do his work when there's a foot of snow on the ground. These grants are a lottery. There's no other way to describe it. They're going to be oversubscribed by whatever, 4 or 5, 6 times. But certainly the better your presentation, the better your chances. The more complete the information is, the better your chances. Because they got guys, and we met them down at UBCM, who sit there and pore over them, looking for any nitpicky little detail that's not correctly identified or whatever. And So anyway, I don't know, would it be possible to ask the specified area people to come to the next committee of the whole meeting as a delegation, or invite them to attend to get some input from them, so that would at least pave the way for us to start, and maybe some other things can be happening in parallel with that, but at least get that part of the process in line so that we can. What's your thoughts?
Well, the next committee of the whole is December 2nd.
Right.
That invitation could go out. I just can't overstate that I need to start talking with government about the project.
Right.
Whether it's water or whether it's sewer. The debate over financing, it's a really difficult one in that there's no doubt the water and utility reserve is in much better shape than the sewer. Therefore, even if you're borrowing for a third for that project, it won't be as painful on the budget. However, I can't speak for when the next large infrastructure opportunity will be after this one, assuming that you're not going to push forward with sewer without a large infrastructure grant. So it's a difficult decision, and it's a difficult decision for the two new members of council, 1 day into their term. But we've got to get that proposal submitted by, I think it's February the 19th, and the expectation is that you spend a lot of time dealing with senior government on that proposal, whether you or your consultant.
Would it make more sense to have something to present to the specified area before you had a meeting with them? I mean, figuring out what the first stage of what council wants to do, and then have something to present to the specified area? I mean, to give them just blanket information that we might do this, we might do that.
Well, basically, I think what our plea would be that we would like to move forward with it for the reasons just stated, and agree that we will still, I think concurrently do the planning. As long as, maybe that would be acceptable, because it was until we had the plan completed. But if we're in the process at the same time, and it will be completed, and present that and see whether that would work, and present some of the evidence that that Scott has provided tonight with regard to capacity and whatnot, so that I think they need security that the people who have been paying are going to have capacity there when they need it in the future. And it might not ever become an issue, but you can't assume that. So that's sort of where I was thinking to go with that. Anyway.
Well, the CAO's earlier remarks about the calculation that's required to have a fund available to replace that facility and upgrade it over time, how far away are we from that number?
From getting the funds or longer?
Well, no, I'm just saying, how much? I mean, you can calculate what the depreciation is on an annual basis and at the end of the life of the plant. Because I think that's what, they could be looking at an increase irregardless. So I'm sure they would want to know, how much is that increase going to be? Because the plant is old, tired, and there are some options in terms of ways in which that cost could be offset by by more users in the system based on a reasonable. All I'm saying is where we're at with that. Where's the village at with understanding that?
Well, that was the discussion earlier. Scott and Glenn made points that there are some fairly significant questions over what capital replacement work does need to be done, and needs to be done in the next few years. It's clear that Glenn has some concerns that we will need to move on some capital replacement within the sewer plant with its existing capacity within the next 2 years. Regardless, we need to find a way to finance even the existing systems capital replacement needs, which is something that's not been done over the 15 years. So a dialogue does need to be struck up with the specified area utility payers regardless, to make sure that they understand that, because there is a bit of a problem there in the utilities finances. But yeah, the timing of Build Canada is not the best.
Yeah, 2 points. Number one, either I have a gross misunderstanding of how this works, or to me, it would seem that by adding users to that plant down, there's only going to benefit the existing participants. That there would not be a wholesale bringing people in that didn't have a makeup on the capital cost of what's already, that they're going to benefit from. So there's going to be some, and that would either equate into upgrades, buying new cars, something. So there has to be benefit. And then I can't understand how that, since the facility's basically there, when you add in more users, that everybody's rate's going to be a little lower than if you don't. But that's point one. Second point is, I think going forward on the planning, I think we should be moving on that gung-ho, because that planning's always there.
Yeah.
It's 20, 50 years, whatever. So we shouldn't hesitate on the planning part. We can't go wrong doing that.
It was, before Build Canada was announced in October, the plan was to move forward with phases 2 and 3 of the liquid waste management plan, which would address a great deal of these questions. I've already been in a dialogue with the Ministry of the local, let's just say the local government ministry, remember the full acronym there, Finance Division, about the questions we've got regarding expanding the service area, how to finance incremental expansion. They are working with us, but we've only really done these large questions on them since UBC. So getting answers is underway, but whether we'll have everything we need by February 19th, so question.
So I had one last quick, something that I haven't heard mentioned, and I also don't understand, and that is the status of the developable land within the current specified area that is undeveloped. Are we, in all these discussions, when they talk about surplus capacity, is there an allowance in the surplus capacity that takes care of what's already committed to? There is? Okay. Because what I hear them saying is, oh, we're using this much, and that allows that much more, but what we're using is not, when you say we're using that much, that allows for the portion that's not being presently used?
Little capacity, yes.
Yeah, the 340 cubic meters was the full build-up. That would be the capacity.
What I'm hearing though is we're at 100 cubic meters now is what our peak use is now.
Yeah.
But that doesn't include a whole bunch of lots that haven't been developed.
Yeah.
So you've got to, that's going to be allowed for in the calculations too. Okay.
Yeah, that's the unknown, is how much we have left when if all those properties were actually developed.
And some of them do change over time as people go up. Right now, they're on the sewer system. If they were only a single user at that point, if they build up and put a couple of condo units on top, then that's greater capacity than perhaps was built in, right?
Well,
so there's all these.
Then I don't
there's ups
understand
and
that,
downs.
because to me, if there's a lot sitting there that has a certain amount of units on it now, they can't just add, they're limited to that number of units for that lot, right? They can't just go in, no, they're unlimited.
Well, to the building bylaws and our bylaws, yeah. So if they're allowed to,
So somebody can put a condo in downtown Castle, what happened with,
well, if they had the land and they were on there.
no, we're talking
it's-
about building on top of something that's already there.
Yeah.
So somebody could put a
Yes.
thing, add 20 toilets, and we don't have any regulations that prevent them from doing that.
That's right.
Whoa.
Our bylaws also need reviewed.
Whoa. Whoa.
Well, because there
I
have
didn't say that
been.
publicly, did I? Whoa,
So,
that's,
yeah.
whoa.
Well-
We gotta take care of that.
Yes.
Good Lord.
Yeah, there's
And
issues.
there were two, one over top of the laundromat, they wanted to put a suite in there, plus
I thought each lot would have a specified amount
And
of
the,
units allotted to it.
the liquor store, they want to put 2 suites in there.
Yeah.
Well, can't figure it says things change over time, right? You can't foresee what's gonna happen.
And well, when councils change, you don't know what the thinking was at the time, and if you don't know to put those kind of things in and foresee, maybe when the original plan was drawn up, you could see that, yeah, people are gonna wanna build up. So, yeah.
The thing is, you can't crystal ball gaze, you can't design a sewer system around the fact that there may be 10-story buildings all running the full length of Front Street.
No.
So you've gotta be somewhat
I
realistic.
strongly disagree. When you build on a lot, you put in a septic system that's allowed a certain amount of units of uses on it, period. And you can't turn around and add 3 bedrooms or 4 bathrooms into your lot and septic system. This is
But
common.
that's addressed in your OCP. If I can tear down a house, if I can tear down an old house and put in 2 condos to replace it, then I'm good to go.
On your septic system. They won't let you do that.
No,
Well,
if it's on sewer.
Well, the point is, if
Yeah.
we plan that way for septic, how on earth are we not planning for that way unless on a sewage treatment plant? That sounds crap to me.
But it still can't go over the capacity of the plant. So even if they may be allowed to do that, and the plant was at full capacity, then council would have the right to say no, wouldn't they?
But the first person out of the gate to buy up all the toilet units wins, and nobody else gets anywhere. No, something's totally wrong with this.
But the reality is that when they built the system originally, they had a fairly major build-out schedule for Kaslo Bay, which, as you can see now, has not taken place. And so you can kind of downscale the estimates there to begin with. So we're not experiencing the build-out that was anticipated when the plant was originally installed.
But there was a density associated with the development of that property, and that density was what was a factor in determining sizing the sewer.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that density, I would assume, would apply to every lot in a specified area, that there'd be a number of units or something, that each lot would be allotted or something.
Even if you put in a home-based business that draws water, right? You put in a hairdressing salon.
We're talking about waste, right?
Right, but water turns
Yeah.
into waste,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah.
Anyway, what do we need to tell Neil what we're doing?
Planning.
And what about his dialogue with the province? Are we prepared to commit to doing a grant for sewer, or what are we doing?
I will point out that a year ago, we were directed to look at the water treatment plant alternate intake. There was a report ready, and we could very quickly begin a dialogue with the province on that, and the preliminary work has all been done. I'm not going to make a recommendation one way or the other, because this is a political decision for council.
So basically, we have to decide sewer over water at this point, given that we have the water project all laid out, ready to go. No, pretty much laid out, ready to go. Or a sewer project which has controversy and not enough planning to actually proceed right now without ruffling feathers. So those are the questions.
In a few months.
But Neil's point earlier is critical in my way of thinking, is that Waterworks has some money in the bank, the sewer system has none to speak of, and if we want to get that building across the street there on sewer, we gotta, and that whole block, the whole 3 blocks. Anyway, we need to make a decision, so when are we making a decision?
Well, you could make it on the 25th.
Or can we come to the meeting on the 25th with a decision in hand, or a vote, or just put it to a vote?
Or you could wait for the new council on the 9th, or committee as a whole on the 2nd.
Well, it would be good to have a comparison of some kind of dollars, because one is probably quite considerably more expensive than the other. What other projects does the village have coming up in the next year? So, you know, I mean, it would be good for whoever's making the decision to have some comparison as to what, if you make this decision, this is what it's going to be. That doesn't-
I kind of agree. I'm tempted to step a little farther now and say that it'd be nice to have dollars and cents sort of idea of what doing the water improvement is. And then probably, to address this over here, I know this is going to cost some squawking, but a price on a septic system for the city hall as an option, just so we can put all these little pieces on the table and we can start seeing what we can afford.
We can't do septic at the city hall.
We can? Why not?
No, I think we were told by the building inspector to reoccupy that building, it didn't have to be hooked up.
No, he just needs a sewer solution
Oh,
to be derived.
Okay.
So the option is a septic system or hooked up to the specified area. Glenn estimates $25,000 to $30,000 to do a septic.
25 to 30?
Yeah.
So we should have all these little pieces, of paper down on the table.
Little pressure when you,
Well, I could have some figures. I can talk to. I mean, the water figures are all done. It's a project that costs under $500,000, at least according to MindDOT's figures. The ballpark option you had up there for the one street was about 1.37 million.
It's easy decision for me. Let's see. If you, so we're going to come back with
so it's.
some numbers.
Yeah, I can bring some numbers
So
for
it's
December
December
2nd.
So December 2nd
For
or
okay.
for the regular council meeting?
I would
Or would you
I would
need
bring-
extra time?
I would bring a staff report for December 2nd would be my suggestion so that you can make a quick decision on the night.
Are we going to ask Scott to do anything prior to that?
What would you like him to do?
Well,
I think we have to make the decision
for
first.
us.
Nail down a basic incremental project of some kind?
Which sounds like it'd be the city hall, right? That's where you're going.
Well,
That block.
that lot.
Yeah, I think that'd be smart.
I mean, realistically, I think that's all we can afford.
Yeah. Well, we should have that number on the
So we
table.
should, so
Yeah.
can we instruct him to get that number for us? For December 2nd?
I can ask him to refine the number, but of course, if you're wanting something more detailed, he give you a ballpark of about $5,000 to do
Yeah.
that.
Well, he can at least go and count the houses and do some, and look at the maps
And
and
you came up with something that was like 2,000 a year or something. You had some-
$1,000 a year.
And staff.
Okay, I can direct him to do that. So
Yeah.
It's ballpark.
Yeah.
Kind of give us an order of magnitude on all this thing.
See, the prices are pretty close to the same. The water project and that one street of sewer are pretty close to the same number, in the $500,000 range.
Let's get these things on paper.
Other-
I totally agree.
Thing is, can we direct towards the phases 2 and 3 of the liquid waste management plan, or do you have to go?
I mean, I think,
Maybe
I'll check the rules on that. Combining phases 2 and 3 will elevate the bill. He hasn't given us a quote for doing that yet.
Okay.
I'll get a quote for a more.
Yeah, I'm just asking for a quote for phases 2 and 3 of the liquid waste management plan, because I think you need to proceed with that
Yeah.
irregardless.
That's right.
So we can do that for that meeting as well.
Okay,
All right.
okay.
And it isn't built in here, but it is a committee of the whole meeting. Entertain question from the gallery.
Just a comment. A water project, borrowing would be undertaken for the entire village, so the entire village would vote on a borrowing referendum. Sewer project, would a second specified area be created and only the second specified area be voted on the borrowing referendum?
It it would really depend on how council wanted to take that service forward. There's various ways you can do that. I would imagine you'd expand the service area rather than create a new distinct new service for an additional area. That's the typical way forward. It's the typical way regional districts expand their services too over time.
So then the question is, how receptive would the public be to voting on a borrowing referendum for a sewer project that they're never going to use? Vast majority of the village residents, as opposed to a project that will benefit everyone in the village with a water project. Like, where is the public at? I would just ask you to consider that.
Yeah.
Because there's no point in applying for a grant if your borrowing bylaw is going to be defeated.
Yeah.
At what point do we have to go to a referendum on borrowing?
Oh, there's a for long-term borrowing. There is a trigger. Yeah, it would be triggered for a sewer project like that, pretty certainly. For the water project, because we have the reserve, we'd have to run the numbers. You might even find you don't need to borrow from that. No, not a guarantee, but there might you might not have to. You might want to actually have a reserve to pay up a bit.
But having said that, if the sewer goes ahead, I won't be paying for it.
Well,
Because I won't be hooked into it.
That's my question.
yeah.
Think of the people along that block, this back alley. They would be the only people voting on your borrowing bylaw.
That's not what I understood. What I understood it'd be the current area plus them.
Well, I can tell you then that it would be defeated because just the mood within the existing specified area is they've still got a debt to pay off. They're not going to be willing to borrow more. And if you would just be asking the people along this lane here, just thinking of them, who they are and how receptive they would be to borrowing money.
During my campaign, I ran into probably 3 or 4 people along these, I think it was a proposed area, and they adamantly said there would be a revolt if they're forced to go onto the. So I get what you're saying in the sense that it might be a tricky one to get the vote. Because a lot of them, including North Cooney Lake and all them, have community service have just put a big investment in. I talked to Rob about that, if there was any, grandfathering in kind of scheme or something like that. But yeah, there's a few of them are pretty outraged and against it.
But you can't.
No, I'm not saying not to do it.
You can't say we're never going to expand the sewer system because it's going to upset a handful of 4 or 5
Rob,
people.
you see, there's the advantage of having your liquid waste management plan. Because once this village has a liquid waste management plan endorsed by the province, council will have the right to borrow without going to the public.
That's what I was saying. I think it would be an issue getting the public.
This point, having to go to the public to get your borrowing approved, I don't think the sewer project stands a chance of being voted positively. I don't
That's statement true that if we have a liquid waste management plan, you don't have to ask. You still have to go to referendum.
No, that is, and Scott emphasized that. That was changed maybe 18 months ago when we were doing phase 1. It's a key change that the government made, and a lot of people didn't sort of tune into that.
Let's get the plan in place.
It's an incredible, I don't know how popular council is.
Well, yeah, no kidding. Yeah. You gotta move forward.
All right, well, thank you, everyone. Yes, to adjourn by